He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion.
And a good morning to you, and thank you for joining the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, this morning on Pan-African Television. We are also live on Ahunto 92.3 FM and several other radio partners across the country, including Global FM in Ho, Diamond FM in Tamale, and China FM in Akachi, among several others. We are live on social media, strong presence on Facebook, on the page Pan-African Television, Pan-African Television, spelled out in full. You can watch us there. Alternatively, if you like to listen to internet radio, you can use any of the radio streaming apps. Look for Ahunto 92.3 FM or look for Radio Gold 90.5 FM, and you can get to listen to us. The feed that is broadcasting on Pan-African Television on Facebook is also shared on Radio Gold 905 FM. If you have access to that page, you can use that page. A big thank you to our friends at Adam Fopa Media in Paris, who are also picking us live. A big thank you to you for making time to watch the show today. Another interesting show coming your way. My name is Sena Nombo. Let me start this morning in the Volta region. First of all, on a very sad note, because this morning, if you recall a few weeks ago, the major topic of discussion was the gruesome murder of an assembly member in a suburb of Sogakope. Well, that assembly member is being laid to rest today. Marcus Mauto Ajali is being laid to rest today. A promising businessman who was murdered in his prime, and our condolences to his electorates where he was an assembly member, and also to his family. And let's stay in the Volta region a bit longer, because the big issue has to do with the presence of armed men. Reports from the Volta region say that can only be akin to what happens on the Korean border. The presence of armed men has increased dramatically. The first news that came out was the massive shakeup on that border, that Flower-Lome border. A massive shakeup of immigration officers. A majority of immigration officers there were transferred mass and were replaced by new officers. Then it follows with the deployment of military men. Citizens and residents say they fear for their life. They're actually not sure exactly why that is happening there. Well, there's a statement from the Ketu South MCE on the presence of the military in the municipality. And that statement, I'm reading from the Facebook page of Jubilee Radio, a radio station based in Keta. And the statement is... the statement reads, the presence of the security in Ketu South is to protect the citizenry and to maintain peace, law, and order in the municipality. As you are already aware, Ghana's land borders have been closed since the outbreak of COVID-19 in the country in order to curb the spread. However, the intelligence has said that the number of people still use unapproved routes to enter the country. We in the Ketu South have the effect of the recalcitrant individuals who normally aid people to cross the border through these unapproved routes. The initial cases of COVID-19 recorded in the municipality were all foreigners who were intercepted by the security officials via these porous unapproved routes. Now, one may ask, what about the number of people who succeeded in entering the country unnoticed? How many people have been infested by these illegal travelers who might have been positive? It is in our interest to be safe and in good health, to ply our trade in tranquility, hence the presence of the military and other security officials. They are here to also help police our porous borders and numerous unapproved routes against foreigners who still find way to pass to and fro from infecting our cherished people with COVID. The Assembly had earlier spent thousands of Ghana cedis to quarantine both foreigners and Ghanaians and on security. It is unsustainable to continue to do so solely as a municipality, even in this COVID era. External support has been sought, and we have it, thanks to the National Security Council. All must remain calm and assist the security to protect us. We are safe and must feel safe. That is signed by Elliot Edem Agbonowu, who is the MCA for Ketu South And that is his explanation. There are, in some circles, is also being denied that such presence exists. We have seen the videos, we have seen the pictures, and a lot of people are apprehensive about what they are hearing. In fact, petrified, they are scared. They don't know why the military men are there. It's one of the issues that I just wanted to draw attention to briefly before we move on to our discussion for today. Of course, on the table this morning, the major discussion has to do with that judgment of the Supreme Court. We've all been waiting for the judgment. We were seeking clarity. We're hoping it will put an end to the issue. When it was done, we were all left asking each other what just happened. Well, we'll be talking about that judgment. And don't forget, the flag bearer of the Opposition National Democratic Congress says that essentially deprives a lot of Ghanaians and has the potential of disenfranchising a lot of people. But he's saying that a lot of work can be put into ensuring that every Ghanaian who is eligible registers. Well, then we'll spend some time talking about COVID-19 because the numbers continue to go up. A lot of concerns has been expressed by religious leaders, especially the church, the pastors, and the bishops, questioning why some of their members, some bishops and pastors, especially one in the Volta University, are arrested and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Yet they saw what they saw during the MPP primaries. Nobody has been picked up, nobody has been jailed, nobody has been fined. Lots of questions being asked about that. And then there are questions about the new discharge policy that government is talking about. We'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about what the Nigerian Speaker of Parliament is describing as an attack on Nigeria, the demolition of that property belonging to the Nigerian High Commission. We'll spend some time on that. Joining me this morning to discuss the issues that I've just tabled is our regular panelist, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, is managing editor of the Inside newspaper. He is a regular on the Alhaji and Alhaji panel. Fortunately for us, because of COVID-19, there's not a lot of traveling, so we have him at least for the rest of the year. And we have joining us the former Minister of Health, and also he's the head of external affairs of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Alexander Segbefia, and then a member of the NDC, the new Patriotic Party's communication team, Mujeeb Rahman, who has also become a semi-regular of sorts, and then Ambassador Pee Yalley, who is the president of the NDC Professionals Forum, a former Ghana High Commissioner to India. They will be helping us discuss the issue today. I'll be starting off the discussion with the Ambassador on the issue of the Supreme Court decision when we come back from this break. Do stick and stay with us. We are back shortly.
Hello. What are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational stories from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma Pratt. Still, the only TV show with a hat.
Market Stories is all about our market. Issues such as sanitation, market structures, storage facility, pricing, bargaining, and everything else that goes on in the market. It's going to be very educative, entertaining, and interactive. We would visit our various markets with both sellers and buyers to know everything concerning our market. Join me. My name is Mortia Analinate. I'm your market lady.
Hello, what are you doing?
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer.
Welcome back from that break. You're live on Pan-African Television. If you're watching from Facebook, I'm sure you're watching from Pan-African Television, the Facebook page. If you're listening to radio, I'm sure you're doing that to Ahuto 92.3 FM or any of our several affiliates and partner stations across the country. My name is Sena Nombo, and I welcome you to another edition of Alhaji and Alhaji. Here we say it as it is, no matter who is involved in it, and we leave you better educated. Now, this morning, 3 issues tabled. Let me just remind you of them. The Supreme Court judgment. We are talking about COVID-19, the rising numbers, and the political activities. And then we are spending some time talking about the demolition of that property belonging to the Nigerian High Commission. Now, we are starting with the issue of the Supreme Court judgment. The matter was sent there initially by the National Democratic Congress, and then a certain Teshi Benson joined the case, were joined to the case. The cases were consolidated. Now it became a case of two plaintiffs against the Electoral Commission and Attorney General. Now, the lawyer who argued on behalf of the National Democratic Congress, a lot of people have been asking him to talk, but he's not said much. A very young lawyer, Godwin Eduji, on his Facebook page only had this to say. And when I read this, we'll be taking the very first thoughts from Ambassador Pee Yalley, who will be starting the discussion for us on the issue of the Supreme Court judgment and implications on the voter registration exercise. And this is what he wrote on yesterday. It says, good morning. Yesterday, the Supreme Court gave orders in relation to the suit we issued at the registry of the Supreme Court. The court indicated that the full judgment will be ready by 15 July 2020. On the 4th June, when we first appeared before the Supreme Court, judges expressed their reservations with the documentary interview I had on Metro TV with Paul. I was subsequently advised to avoid any media engagement. I have taken note of the confusion over the effect of the grant of 2 reliefs and the refusal of the other reliefs. Ordinary, you will need the judgment to be able to properly advise on the best way forward. Unfortunately, the judgment will be ready by 15 July. Many lawyers have reached out to me to go back to court for clarification, just as it happened in Abu Ramadan number 2. Well, the judgment provides explanations for the others. No judgment yet, so clearly there is a challenge. In the meantime, let me thank everyone for the support. I got to know a lot of silent supporters who were caught up in the confusion. On Tuesday, when the registration starts, be the first to register while observing the social distancing protocols. I don't want to be in contempt of courts. That is from Godwin Eduji Tamakulu. Well, let's start the discussion on that issue because the Electoral Commission has also set the date, 30th of this month, to the 6th of August. Ambassador Pee Yalley will start the discussion for us this morning. Ambassador, good morning.
Well, good morning. Before I begin on that, my attention has been drawn to a newspaper headline, Daily Guide, which says that NDC we apostle free on what 100,000 bail. We in the NDC respect the media. We respect editorial discretion, but we don't accept editorial stupidity. We don't accept editorial stupidity. For what reason, Daily Guide? You know, it used to be Daily Rollins. The whole paper infrastructure has been built on demonizing others. Daily Guide. For all this while, they have never issued any headline that has not demonized a Ghanaian. And I think having had that free range, they want to continue in that. But this time, we are prepared to stop them. What made that apostle an NDC apostle? Even if it's an NDC member, is he the first person that has been caught with we? That has not even been planted on him. Is it not the same pastor or apostle who was seen exercising the spirits of Akufo-Addo's father on the epitaph of us, Akufodo's father Aladan about. He's not the same pastor. When did this pastor become an NDC man? And those editors and the owners of Daily Guide should be burning their hands in shame. And we will not tolerate them any longer. The NDC is made up of credible, respectful persons. And we cannot, for long, continue to take this nonsense from them. If you are an editor, you want to write pieces that brings people together and not always demonizing people. Thank you very much. Sena, like all other Ghanaians, and even as a lawyer, I'm confused as to whether we have a solution or we have created more problems with this Supreme Court judgment. I'm also mindful of the fact that once the Supreme Court has spoken, it appears until the decision is changed, it's final. But once the decision has become final, then people, like any other citizen, has a right to comment or offer opinion on what the Supreme Court has done. And that will not constitute a contempt of the Supreme Court or trying to interfere in the work of the judiciary. Having made that point, I want to stick to what the issues had been and what had gone on and what has come out of it. You know, ever since the Supreme Court was seized with the opportunity looking into the petition of the NDC, and as you said, by one Techi Banson, a young farmer from, I think, Sukumo Odobin Brapa, and I salute him so much for being a peasant farmer and with the guts to challenge and fight for his right. What were the issues? The Electoral Commission had decided that against all odds, they would have to change the voters' register. And the decision for changing the voters' register were given as follows. 1, the existing voters' register is overstretched. The existing voters' register is not reliable. And not only did they attack the integrity of the existing voters' register, which previous electoral commissioners have compiled. So the question then is, if Afarijan and all his predecessors have not been diligent enough to write a credible register, what do we do to them? Are you getting my point? For all the money that we have spent as a nation on the Electoral Commission, for the current point to tell us that they did not do due diligence and that the register they have is not credible, what do we do to them? Now let us examine some of the factors. One of the reasons is that the current register is bloated by the reason of the fact that some persons believed or suspected to be Togolese. I want to emphasize the word Togolese, and I'll come back to it. I've found their name on the register, and this was due to the revelation by the, I don't know how to call him, by Vice President Bawumia, that he, by his examination, has seen about 76,000 names that appears on the voter region Togo register, and the same name appears on the Ghana register. When these claims were made, Dr. Bawumia was requested by a committee that was set up under the chairmanship of Dr. BC and he's a doctor or professor. Justice BC and Crown. And he was requested to submit the 76,000 names of the Togolese that were found on the voters' register. As I speak to you now, the committee is still sitting, but Obia has not presented those lists. Then again, the question then was, there were dead people on the voters register. Okay, if there were dead people on the voters register, then what do we do? Another reason given, which is the main issue raised by the Electoral Commission when they were asked to give legal reasons for their defense, was that they still believe that there are some people who registered with the National Health Insurance cards, and these names are still on the list. For me, when this issue went to the Supreme Court and the NDC challenged, the issue then should not have been as we have seen. If you read Article 45A, what it gives the Electoral Commission as a function. I've heard people say the Electoral Commission has powers. It doesn't have any power. And even if it has powers, the powers are subject to the sovereign will of the people. You understand that? The Electoral Commission has these functions to compile listen to the conjunction clause the voters register and review same periodically in accordance with law. That is the classical function given to the Electoral Commission. So the question then should have been whether or not Ghana has a voters register. If that had been the legal issue in dispute as to whether or not we had a legal register, then the Electoral Commission would have come to say that yes, we have a voters register, but it's not credible. And then the Supreme Court would have gone on to ask to what extent and by what reason is it not credible. Because that's what the Constitution says. But as we have it now, one of the orders given is that the rule is that the the Electoral Commission can, write a new register as and when they want. That's one of the effects. So next year, we are likely, or in any time soon, we are likely to ask Ghanaians to go and queue and write a new register. Can you imagine the cost? Can you imagine the inconveniences? And one of the key issues raised by the NDC was not for the NDC themselves. One of the key issues raised was that by the requirements of the Electoral Commission through CI 127, it was very likely that many people may not get a chance of being registered to vote. Even though that right to be registered and the right to vote is enshrined in the Constitution, which cannot be repealed. I believe it's one of the entrenched clauses that the right to register and the right to vote is inalienable. And what are these requirements according to the Constitution? The person must be a citizen of Ghana. The person must be 18 years and above. The person should be, of sound mind. These are the constitutional criteria for eligibility, to vote and to be voted for and to register. These are the basic things. And so if the Supreme Court had been minded in analyzing these three conditions, they would have come to the conclusion that a citizen's right is accrued. And when law says accrued, it is something that has, he has won by being a citizen under the Citizenship Act of Ghana. By the fact that my parents, or one of my parents, is a Ghanaian, I am a citizen. By the fact that my mother was married to a Ghanaian, I am a citizen. By the fact that I have naturalized as a Ghanaian, I am a citizen. You understand? So, ab initio, there's a presumption of citizenship inherent in me. And anybody who's challenging my citizenship has the duty, has the burden of challenging my citizenship. But now it has been the other way round. Now, in spite of the constitutional provisions, in spite of constitutional guarantees, in spite of the Citizenship Act, I am now being asked to prove my citizenship. And in doing so, what am I required to present? A passport, an NIA card. And what is so obnoxious now is the fact that somebody in the queue or somewhere had to come and vouch for me. This is what NDC was challenging, that this is against the Constitution. This is taking the people's right from them. And some people in this country did not believe that. Some people like the MPP did not believe that by this mode of writing people's names on the voters register, a lot of people were going to be disenfranchised. Because, Sena, the records of the Foreign Affairs indicate that as at today, a little over 2 million people have Ghana passport. A little over 2 million people. But I'm beginning to find out how many Ghanaians who acquire Ghana passport when they don't have intention to travel. Can you imagine anybody trying to seek passport from Kodiabe? He comes to Accra to seek passport and just to put the passport in his room. So it's likely that almost 2/3 of the persons who have acquired passport are not in this country. You understand? So we cannot still claim that 2 million people can have access to be registered because of the fact that they own national passport. We cannot have that. Secondly, we are depending on national identification card issued by the NIA, National Identification Authority. No, so at the time this whole business started, the NIA had not completed half of its job. If you look at the records pitched against the number of people that voted even in 2016, and those that have been registered by the NIA, and who by that fact can have access to register, they were almost half. So if you are going to use the NIA card, then almost half of the people who have been registered cannot also have access to be registered. Now, let me go back to the issue of the National Health Insurance Card. In the case of Nana Akufo-Addo, Dr. Baumia, and Obetsebe Lamte versus John Mahama and the NDC in the Supreme Court, one of the issues that came up was the fact that some people had used the NIA, National Health Insurance Card, to register. And that because of the fact that many non-Ghanaians have that National Health Insurance Card, it was not durable enough to be used as national identification, for national identification. Consequently, the Supreme Court ordered that the EC should remove all the names of persons who have registered with the National Health Insurance Card. I remember, and you are a journalist, you remember, that the Supreme Court ordered KPMG, that audit firm, to audit the register of voters, and subsequently about 56,000 people were removed from the voters register.
I think that was Abu Ramadan 1 and 2.
Abu Ramadan 1 and 2. Yeah. But the claim was made in the case of the petition challenge in the pink sheet. That was one of the claims they made. And then Abu Ramadan also repeated it. And so the Supreme Court ordered. And you remember that the EC was able to delete about 56,000 names. The Supreme Court did not end there. It says all those who registered with NIA card but are going to be deleted and will be found to be eligible voters should be given the chance to register. That was the ruling of the Supreme Court in the Abu Ramadan case. And in addition to that, the EC should adopt the continuous registration mechanism where anybody who turns 18 will then walk to EC office and get registered. These are the substantive rulings of a Supreme Court of Ghana, which was available to the current Supreme Court. All right. And in the final disposition of the then Chief Justice, Madam Georgina to the Wood. He said, in her opinion, let me paraphrase, the person holding a national ID card is presumed, to be a recognized registrant. Because if he didn't qualify, how would he hold, or she or he hold, the national ID card? And for her, the national ID card was the best prima facie evidence for registration.
Okay. The voter's ID card.
ID card.
Yeah.
This is also available to the Supreme Court.
Mm.
Now, the question as I asked was the Supreme Court asked to pronounce on the validity of the CI 126? Just that. Is that what the Supreme Court was asked to pronounce? Because even when I'm asking that question, because even when they admitted the release by the NDC, they made it subject to CI 126. You understand? And it was very clear to the Supreme Court that the contents of the CI 126 excluded some vital documents that reveal who I am. The last time I told you that those of us in this state, apart from our brother, this young man, who may have been born in the hospital, most of us sitting here, including the Minister of Health, does not have a birth certificate. He only have a baptismal card.
His father was educated, so if you have
a birth certificate. Let me tell you that at that time, the first mode of registration of a person was what? Baptismal certificate. And most of us, including the president, including the Supreme Court judges there, all of them went to school using the baptismal certificate as evidence of their birth. I want them to say no. And if those who had the chance, like this young man sitting here, to be born in a hospital and be issued with a birth certificate to show that he's 18, are you 18 years and above? You see, if I see him, he looks younger than 18 years and above. The only thing he can use to prove that, oh, this is my birth certificate, I am 18 years and above. No, so that one too has been excluded. This document, which is the primary document you use when you are going to write a passport, get a passport, has been excluded. Sena, we had a problem with the US recently, remember? Some Africans were arrested, and Ghana government insisted that the persons that have been arrested, most of them were not Ghanaians, even though they were holding Ghanaian passports. So apart from the fact that those who have traveled as Ghanaian passport, we also have challenges with the validity of some of the passports out there. To the extent that a whole country can resist, deportation on that basis. So you know that the passport cannot be as authentic as the voter ID card because of the way the voter ID card was written. Because that was when we were going to compare, party representatives were there. All right? But for the passport, you drive from Takoradi, is confused. And you know what is confused? They are issuing ECOWAS cards instead of NIA card. And when we raise this issue, some people say that, oh, the NIA card, the Ghana card has Republic of Ghana. And therefore, we are complying with an ECOWAS protocol. That's very nice. If that is the case, why was the president issued with a Ghana card and all of this issued with an ECOWAS card? Google, let your producers Google. When Nana Akufo-Addo went to the NIA office to be issued with the first Ghana card, what was he issued? ECOWAS card or Ghana card. And unless you and I are lawyers, we know that ECOWAS is an international body and they issue treaties and protocols. And the protocols and treaties themselves are not law binding on any country until you have taken steps to domicile those laws and incorporate them into your local laws. They are not laws that can be enforced. I am yet to see the NIA law that is defining ECOWAS card to be coterminous to Ghana identity card. Because if you read the Act 750, it gives the NIA the authority to issue national identity card. Nowhere, even in the definition process, have they explained that ECOWAS card means Ghana card. So now, here am I, I'm giving ECOWAS card. When I go to the registration center, they are requesting for a national identity card. Which one am I presenting? Which one am I presenting? And even then, the NIA itself has considered that they have not completed their job. And they were going to, you know, when they went and people stampeded them, they told them that, oh, don't worry, we'll come back. We'll open district and regional branches so that you can go there and register. It's for this reason that we gave them $1.2 billion to issue cash to Ghanaians. Recently, did I hear right, that about 32,000 of those cards are multiple registration. Yeah. So the passport has a problem, the NIA card has a problem. Now I go to a predominantly NPP stronghold. I'm a Ghanaian, an ordinary Ghanaian. I go to, let's say, Bantama or Mensia, and I want to be registered. I don't have a passport. I don't have a national ID card. Please, gentlemen, can you vouch for me? Sena, what will happen? What will happen? Now we are going to breed new Goro boys, new registration Goro boys. I've seen people who be, you know, we saw it during the NIA registration. Registration in the people's rooms and in the night. You know, so I ask myself, what have we done to bring this to ourselves? What have we done as a country? Because if the Electoral Commission has the device to say that some names are Togolese names, why doesn't he apply the same mechanism to delete those names? Are you following my argument? If you say some people are dead, and so about 20 people are dead, use the same mechanism to bring out the names so that we can all deal with it. Are the machines now good enough for registration? Sena, I thought Jane Mensah said that the machines they are having was not being managed by Ghanaians. Not so. Was it not her argument? And that they didn't have access to the source code. The company that is supplying the machines now, are they from Mujeeb? Where do you come from? Where's your hometown? Apam, where is not your hometown? Apam, are they from? Look at them. The people who are supplying the machine, are they from Apam? The French company that is supplying the machines, doesn't it defeat her own argument? Now, who in his right sense will supply you an electronic gadget for a system like this and give you the source code? It is never done anywhere. And Ghana is not the only country that is having digital bases. If you go to South Africa, even in Ghana here, the place Mahama built and around the circle, the digital village, yes. When somebody is arrested in the US and is given a card, it will be processed in Ghana here. Do we say that the digital village should have the source code of the American system? So now we are in an era of falsehood and comedy. And so now all these are being done for only one reason. For only one reason. And you know the reason? Because election is not an event and a process. People are scheming to make sure that only those who they believe to be favorable will be entered on the voters register. Okay? And let me give you the reason why I'm saying this. Today as I speak, in our secondary schools, in spite of the COVID, the government has given a young man a vehicle going around in the name of Free SHS ambassador. What is he telling the student? We know everything they are telling the student. We know. And at the right time, we'll bring it out. We know. we of the NDC have not been challenging the EC just because of the reason that we are afraid to register. That is not the case. We were challenging the common sense factors of the EC taking this country through a course of extravagance, wastage. We were trying to prevent the system which allows only the elite, you know, the elite, those who have the passport and those who have the NI, only the elite to register. We were seeking to allow the level playing field for every Ghanaian to be registered. But the Supreme Court, who is the next to God, says no. Let the EC have its own way. One of the reasons even they give is that even when there's a better way of doing things, and the EC chose the worst system, it is deemed to be the best. So now the EC has been given free range to do whatever it wants to do. But let me assure them, Sena, as was told us by our flag bearer, you see the difference? The difference is that one gives assurance. Today, Sena, let the Electoral Commission call an election. Let them call an election today. Let them call them in the midnight. The NDC is ready. Let them start the registration today. We are ready. We all have men who have passports. We would challenge this system and also make sure that it is properly done. Do you think that we are going to go into the registration and see people being bussed to register and allow them? You think we are going to do that? You think the NDC will fold its arms and see the government re-elected on the basis of falsehood or rigged election? Never.
Okay.
Never, never, never. We are a government that gives people hope. Since Akufo-Addo came into government, what is sustaining his government? Achievements or fear and force? You know, tell me. Invisible forces, vigilantes, and every law they bring is against the people. You see, every law they bring is against the people. And let me cite one. You bring this EI that says that if a poor taxi driver or even you, Sena, driving in your car and you have rolled your glasses and does not have a nose mask, you should be arrested and be made to pay 12,000 Ghana cedis. How many Ghanaians have that? Or in lieu of that, you go to jail or to both. Is this a system that helps the people? Instead of using the power you have to educate the people to know that no, it is in my own interest, like John Mahama was doing. It is in my own interest to wear nose masks. It is the duty of the government to have given us a plan, not so a plan. What they gave us is laws, ye asked to suppress us. So, since we are going to go to the COVID, I will rest my case.
Okay, thank you.
To the extent that the EC has been given the free will to do whatever they want to do, we in the NDC have also been given the free will to do anything that will protect our rights. We have been given also the free will to also defend our constitutional, rights, and we will so do accordingly without fear or favor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And if you just join us, you're watching Alhaji and Alhaji live on Pan-African television. Let me read a couple of messages before I come to Mujeeb. Baba Musa in China says, "Sena, good morning to your panel members. Supreme Court ruling has opened up a Pandora box for arbitrary exercise of discretionary powers by state institutions. Ghanaians must take their destiny into their own hands." Kevin Taylor on June 4 said categorically that they were attempts to manipulate the verdict in favor of the EC. Lo and behold, the comments, the Supreme Court has done great disservice to Mother Ghana by giving bizarre power to state institutions to abuse their state-given discretionary powers, either by enactments or legislative regulations. It's sad for Ghana indeed the Supreme Court failed to purge the judiciary of alleged manipulation raised by many Ghanaians. King Farouk in Kaswa says most MPP delegates did not want to give their MPs 4 more years and voted against them, but they want Ghanaians to give Nada 4 more years. We'll reject him. We'll register and vote to send the elephants into the bush. And also, just a couple more. Alhaji Abdul Rashid Razak sends a message, quite a long one. Says, okay, it says, and this message goes to Madam Jimensa, Dr. Bosman Sari, and others at the EC. Let them know they shouldn't think today they have heavy security men guiding them 24/7. They should know if power turns 2021, which is shall allow it to change. They will not even have half a person, one security man to guard them. And they will not have freedom or, they will not be free to walk in Ghana as the Dr. Afarijan is walking now. Okay, thank you very much for that message. We need to look at it a bit more. Let's move to Mujeeb Rahman for his thought. Mujeeb.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rod. I think we have now been shown the direction to go as a people. Because for the past few months in this country, we all know what we were confronted with in respect of our electoral process and moving forward in this country. And the Electoral Commission, whether or not they have the right to go ahead and compile a new register or not, that has been a bone of contention between especially with the major political party in this country. And subsequently, a group has emerged that to reinforce the stand of the the NDC to press on their demand. Eventually, we have been interrogated this for a very long time, and there were seeming tension building up in this country, and most of us were worried that we have a young democracy that we have to guide against. But looking at where we are going, I think that it will not serve the purpose or interest of any group of people. So NDC ended up in court, and I applauded them for, at that point, seeing the need and the wisdom to go to court, the appropriate that be to seek for the interpretations of the issues that they disagree with the Electoral Commission, especially 4 to 5, if you look at the reliefs they took to the court. So eventually, the court has given its ruling on the case, and it has shown the direction. Just like Uncle said, as a Ghanaian, it is your right to express your opinion. You may disagree with the position of the court, but what the court said, for now, if there's no any other contrary, it becomes law, and that is the direction that we all have to follow. So I was very happy with the ruling, and I think that sanity has now been brought into our political space. So, and I'm sure, and I am convinced that is the direction the NDC, because if you listen to the press conference that was held by the leader and the presidential candidate of the new National Democratic Congress, he stated their position but urged their members to be the first to get their names into the register, especially those with a Ghana passport, Ghana card and passport, and even by trying to get people to vouch for them to get into the register. And I think that that is the best way to go, because what else could one have done? And this is not the first time. If you remember, after 2012 election, that the entire results were being in dispute. The opposition then, or the losing party, the MPP, disagree, who ended up in the Supreme Court. 8 very long months in the Supreme Court. But the judgment was that there was nothing. So the duly elected president is still the president of the Republic of Ghana. Our position was that we disagree the judgment of the court, but we abide by it and we move on. So I think it's a similar case we are seeing here. But I don't want to go into the details where we're coming from, Sena. if you look at the judgment, it has reaffirmed the position of the electoral independence of the Electoral Commission, and that is monumental. That moving forward, some of these things we have to guide ourselves, use them to guide ourselves in trying to question the independence of the Electoral Commission. You know, it has been a vote of contention, and people have turned themselves into lawyers, and they have given interpretation that the Electoral Commission can compile a register once, but subsequent can revise it. The revise can be so many ways as law determined. And I think that it is better. Some went to, I think, Article 296, how the arbitrary. And then we said, no, what the Electoral Commission is doing is within its limit. It's within the confines of the Electoral Commission. They are not breaching the laws. But in this, all this disagreement took the litigant parties to court to seek for the interpretation. And I think that the court said there's nothing wrong. The Electoral Commission is acting within its mandate, and they can go ahead to get Ghanaians registered, subject on the CI. But what thing I found instructive is that it was, after glancing at it, I became a little confused. But when I seek for more information, I realized that the court was emphatic, and it was mindful of Article 42, the right of the citizen, 18 years and above and of sound mind, to be registered and vote. That is public representation. It's very, very fundamental. So let nobody think as if the Supreme Court ruling or what the Supreme Court has ruled on maybe trying to interpret it as if it's giving the Electoral Commission the opportunity to go and make sure a lot of people are not being captured into the register that they are about to compile. That is not the position. But the position is to reaffirm the independence, but also urge us that all qualified voters, we should make ourselves available. But, boss, let me be very kind. This is not the first time. I told you, I have been a constituent secretary before. 2012, I took part seriously trying to compile when the Electoral Commission decided to compile a new register. And we saw how it is. In most cases, some of the requirements that even earlier were granted and which were used, the old voter ID card, the health, but you go to some places, some of the people don't have them. There's no instances you can get 100% of the people across board all having either health insurance card or voter ID card given earlier by the Electoral Commission or passport or whatever ID. Then the provision is that, but these people, still Ghanaians, have to be registered. So what do we do to get them into the register? If you get one person who is duly registered and is a voter, can vouch for the person. That is not to say that, oh, you are a Ghanaian, I'm not a Ghanaian. No, if you look at the nature of our country, and most of the people are not educated, and to some extent that some of these things, when they are doing it, they don't really see the need to get themselves involved. And Sena, it is not fault of theirs. Even now what we are doing today, you have that the Electoral Commission cannot get it 100%, as Afrojan could not get it 100%. Charlotte Osei could not get it 100%. So you don't expect Jim Mensah to get it 100%. So now, even if today it is reduced to the even old voter register we all have today, but we can still get 100% of all Ghanaians who are 18 years and above and have sound mind to get into the register. So now, I listened to the former president of the Republic of Ghana and issues he raised with the National Identification Authority and subsequent their response. So now, I am very happy reading their response. So far, if we look at the numbers, Sena, they've started on 23rd June 2020. The NI finally, as at now, in their own response, has registered 385,424 eligible Ghanaians. And printed cards, NIA cards, 11,172,2 261 and issued 10,854,829 as at now. And according to their own response, if not for COVID-19, by now they would have been hitting their target. And Sena, what would be the interest of all these institutions to register Honourable Segbefia and not register Mujeeb? What are they? And in any case, are they registration centers? We are all got, nobody is telling, oh, you are NDC, you are NPP. Because of that, let's discriminate against you, Sena, because you are an NDC or because me am an NPP. That is not exactly what is going on. Especially, of course, there are other few cases, and people have raised issues. And the NIA authorities came out to respond to those challenges. Sena, currently, there's a registration going on. The NIA has started in other regions. My region, for instance, I've heard complaints, the Upper West region, especially one municipality, that in some instances, Honorable, they go and the machines are not functioning or flimsy excuses. Or in the village, they can't get an extension cord to connect to electricity and be able to operate the machine. And these are flimsy excuses. So people, we urge them, they organize a press conference. That was not on political basis. It was just the youth, we urge them to just press and just bring it to the notice of the NIA. And I think, I believe they are going to respond to it and make sure they capture a lot of people into the register. But in this sense, even the parties itself, we have also taken it as a party to sensitize our people. They need to get yourself into getting the Ghana ID card, subsequent getting yourself to the new voter register. But sincerely, in summary, I am very happy with the position of the National Democratic Congress. You may not always be the victor, or by per the ruling, they made it clear that they disagree. But the fundamental aspect is urging their members to go out and get themselves into the register. I am very comfortable with that position. But we can go further to even expose their insincerity, in the sense that because they went to court with one mind, their mind is to get the Electoral Commission to accept a old voter ID card to make sure that that one is part of the breeder documents getting into the register. And now, if I were them, but that one I just want to say, we could have, even no matter the time, if we were telling the people that we are seeking to correct a wrong, still go ahead and even call for a review of the whole decision and put pressure. Maybe eventually you can seek to correct that wrong in future. But for now, it's like because of their one direction mind, and that one is not granted, maybe but eventually, I am happy they are taking part in the exercise. You are the largest opposition party in this country, and you can't underrate your membership. So I was only worried on the side that they were navigating. That this part will not help you, but I'm happy they are in. So now, in the issue of exclusiveness and inclusiveness, that one was very clear when the former president addressed his own party members and the people of Ghana in press conference. So now I was baffled with what we call exclusive politics and inclusive. If you are talking of inclusive politics, for instance, today we are sitting, so now, a government has introduced the free senior high school policy. Who doesn't know NDC, doesn't know NPP? Some president, past president, has introduced the health insurance in this country. Who doesn't know NPP, doesn't know NDC, but Ghanaians. All these are exclusive. But if you want to tag those people as exclusive group of people or political party, anytime they get time to study the affairs of this country, they always try to marginalize or make sure some people in this country are not being catered for. That sincerely is not the best. It should be coming from a statesman like former President John Dramani Mahama, especially when the issues on the grounds does not support the fact. But I think that any time that particular party, the UP tradition, the New Patriotic Party, get the opportunity to affect this country, look at the general interest of the populace. So now, why are you seeking political power? You are seeking political power to improve on the living standards of your own people. And what is more important than making health accessible to the people, the less privileged, the people in the rural area, the vulnerable in society? So now, have you forgotten of the cash and carry? That you go to hospital, you don't have money, you are in trouble. We have passed that stage. So now, have you forgotten people ending their educational career at the middle school or the secondary school level? Without that, you can't go back to university. I thank my parents and I thank the system that I was able to go to school, even though it was difficult at that time. But today, if it's being made accessible to everybody in this country, every Ghanaian, then we have to applaud the system. So if only you are prepared to go, then you may not be left out because you don't have the ability to pay. It is very significant. And very soon we'll start to record the gains of that singular laudable policy of the current administration under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So eventually, those who still want to disagree and continue in that direction, it is within their right. But what I want to add up to, after the court ruling, the NDC is a strong party with more vibrant lawyers. But why did you allow the General Secretary to address the media? You know, some of the issues that came after. But you know, so sometimes when the court speaks, you need more education to get to know exactly what the court wants to put across there. So, but I think that there are law-abiding people. They said, let bygones be bygones and we move. So on the 30th of this month, I and my uncle will just get there and make sure we get our names onto the register. So those of you out there watching us from 30th to 6th August, make sure wherever you are, you try to make yourself available. If you don't have passport, you don't have the Ghana card, and you've not yet registered, the registration is still going on. So you make sure you get the Ghana card, and then you can use that one to register. If you think all this too, you can't get the document, you still have the opportunity to make sure your name gets into the register by getting a friend like myself or Sena or Honourable Segbefia to just vouch within a minute, letting the people understand that I know Sena is a Ghanaian. They will make sure that you are there. So let's applaud, let's use all this opportunity to make sure that we are in.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mujeeb Rahman. Let me announce also that our text message and WhatsApp line for today is 0551 338611. 0551 338611. Now, Hadi Mpe Farm says it is only in Ghana under Jin Mensah and our Supreme Court judges that one's citizenship cannot be determined by birth. Yeah. Why are we doing this to ourselves? So today, under Jin Mensah and our Supreme Court judges are more Ghanaian because I have passport than my father and mother who gave birth to me in yesterday's Ghana because they don't have ECOWAS card nor passport. If Madam Jin Mensah is not careful, she will go down in history as the West EC boss who placed her selfish gains ahead of the peace, safety, and democracy of we the good people of Ghana. Nobody can force any candidate on we the good people of Ghana as our president than the one we choose with our terms. Inshallah, come December 7th, victory will be for JDM. Let me read a message that was sent in very early. As by Dennis Akwete, who says, and I am more convinced that the earth tremor that hit Accra a night before the Supreme Court ruling might be a signal and notice as the Supreme Court eventual ruling on our voter eligibility was not only a disaster that has deepened the already sinking image of our courts, but has indeed shook the democratic pillars of our nation, Ghana, as the Supreme Court had freely departed from its own previous ruling to deny Ghanaians to use their existing voter ID cards as proof of identity to register in the upcoming voters registration exercise. The court had missed an opportunity to reposition itself. We shall, however, comply, though, but not without a prayer. Hashtag Isaiah 33:22. Shalom. That's from Dennis Yao Akwete, who sent that one. Stephen Kobinato says, in the exercise of their discretion, even if they choose an option that defies logic of all, except those commissioners exercising those discretion, the law would regard their actions as lawful conduct. the Supreme Court says. So if tomorrow, 2021, in exercise of their discretion so granted by the law, this commission, after realizing Anado lost the 2020 elections and have decided to introduce a new CI, which requires only MPP party cards as proof of nationality, could they be faulted? While one may pursue a legal argument on the basis of discrimination, there could be fear of an order that those who seek to obtain the card to vote must go and subject themselves through the processes of obtaining MPP cards to be able to register as voters. How more dangerous can our society be? And let me end with Tafina here, who says, I humbly appeal to my party members who were busy on social media criticizing President Mahama for not being aggressive on his address last night to stop. We must understand our leader is not the type of leader who goes around beating war drums. Yes, we have every right to disagree with the Supreme Court ruling, but we have no other choice than to accept the ruling and move on. We must also remember when the Supreme Court ruled in our favor in 2013 election dispute. Yes, I also thought some important issues would be captured in address last night, especially the development of the military in our stronghold, the deployment of the military in our stronghold in order to intimidate and put fear in our supporters. But nevertheless, we must channel our disappointment and anger towards mobilizing our supporters to go and register. Those of us who has the Ghana card and passport should make sure we guarantee for people who do not have the required documents to register. And inshallah, Allah will speak. Let me go to Mr. Alhaji Segbefia. Mr. Alhaji Segbefia was in court on the day when the decision was given. Thanks for joining us once again.
Thank you so much, and good morning to your viewers and listeners and to my co-panelists. The first thing that I would say about the court judgment is that by the virtue of the way in which it was given and by virtue of the understanding of people, it is clear that the judgment raised a lot of confusion as to what it was saying. There are a number of reasons for that. The first is that it was given in a very hurried fashion. So for those of us in court who had papers and pens, who were initially going to write as he was speaking, we abandoned the paper and pen within 1 minute because it was clear that you couldn't keep up with the pace at which he was going unless you were a shorthand expert or that was your discipline. So we spent most of our time listening to the Chief Justice as he spoke. And it was very fast. And there are reasons why this is important. Because at the end of his delivery, for almost 5 to 10 full minutes, the counsels had to come together and were asking each other what was said or what was not said in terms of the way it was delivered. And certain conclusions were drawn from what was said. Now, you have a lot of reliefs, a number from the NDC, another from the third party who was put in. And each relief was dealt with separately. But what was significant in the delivery was at a certain point the Chief Justice itself said that I'm dismissing this because it is wrong. Because it was dismissed because it had been granted for the NDC on another point. So the huge number of dismissed for me becomes irrelevant depending on what has been granted. And 2 reliefs were granted to the NDC. So if these 2 reliefs were granted and others were dismissed, but those fall under what was asked on the 2 reliefs, then it is neither here nor there till you are clear the basis upon which the Supreme Court made its decision. Until we get this judgment on the 15th, it is not really clear to some of us that the NI, National Identification Card, what's it called, being used, is being removed. And why should I, as a lawyer, be saying so? Because there are specific reliefs that asked for that and was dismissed. But one of the reliefs that was granted subject to CI 126 was the fact that accrued rights had been accepted as a norm which cannot be dealt with capriciously or in any manner by the EC. It must be accepted. They didn't say rights, they said accrued rights. What is the difference between my right to vote and an accrued right to vote? This is the question. The difference is simply the old ID card that I held. Because I've used it before to vote and to identify myself, and it's an accepted document as means of identification even in our banks and other institutions. I have gained an accrued right by virtue of holding that card. If not, if you say that that card has no significance, then there's no point about talking about accrued rights, because my position is exactly the same as any new person who comes and has to go and register. So what is the point of saying that you have granted an accrued right as against to the normal right that exists? And this is very significant. And we cannot know the answer to that till we get the full judgment of the court on the 15th. So when our General Secretary comes out on his interpretation and says that his interpretation is that the accrued rights means that you have an ID card, and based on the fact that if they have granted it in that relief, they have dismissed it in another relief, it is neither here nor there that it has been dismissed, because it has been granted already here. Then it may mean that when the explanation comes forth, that right is being accepted by the court, and therefore the EC should take the card and use it. I hope I'm making a little bit of sense to what has happened. The point is that it is not clear, and it is unfortunate that it is not clear, because in the consequential orders that were given by the court, they made one thing very clear. The EC should go ahead and can register people, and the registration should go ahead as planned. They said it clearly. But in reality, there were only two major issues, notwithstanding all the reliefs. There were two major issues that went to the court. One, can the EC compile or not compile? Two, if they can compile, can the old register card be used? Why didn't they also, in the consequential orders, categorically state, especially since you hadn't given us the full judgment, that for the avoidance of doubt, this card, old national identification card, can be used or cannot be used? It was not done. And that is where the confusion stems from. So I have no problem with the statement made by our General Secretary. He was spot on. The problem was that it is also a trap. It is also a trap, because when our flag bearer listened to everything that had gone, he realized that if we want to stick onto that matter, we have to wait for 15 days, because it may be answered in the judgment clearly. So 3 weeks, we have to wait to the 15th of July, 3 weeks, before you can then decide if they come out and say, no, what we meant was you were not supposed to use the card. For 3 weeks, our people will not be able to register, because you cannot even get an injunction as simple as that, because it has been made categorically clear in the judgment that EC, go ahead. Whether they even have the powers to do that or not, it's neither here nor there. But they have categorically said it. So if you go to that court to look for an injunction, you won't get it. So you have more or less put us in a position where the flag bearer then says, look, for us to change these people and move them out of government, there's only one way, and that is to vote. And therefore, if we have to vote, we must register. And if I wait for 3 weeks to find out whether they will allow the card or not before we start taking legal action, we would have lost 3 weeks in trying to get our people to register. Meanwhile, the registration is ongoing. So, what do we do? What we do is we look at the potential reliefs that we will get, but let our people know that they must go out and register. In any event, we already had our suspicions as to the outcome of this case. So, while we hope for the best, we were planning for the worst. So now, push it. Let us go out there, get your people out in their numbers, let us register and make sure that you can vouch and get people in. As to the nitty-gritty of it or what, look, as for the NIA and their registration, it is sad. Because we are coming to start an exercise on Tuesday. And you want us to clap for the NIA for telling us that they have done 10 million cards issued, 11 million registered. And we are supposed to be 18 million and more to register. And we are supposed to clap for that. Why don't we do cesarean section for all our women when they are 5 months old, pregnant? Because if you are 5 months pregnant, your child is alive. You can do a cesarean section and take them and put in the incubator and hope that the child will live or not. So why don't we do that? And we let them go the full trimester 9 months before. Because that is the safest place and that's less complications. So why are we clapping for a group of people who have now done only 2/3 of registrations? That should be done. And we think that this is a fantastic thing. And the registration exercise is going to start on Tuesday. And that is the card we are going to use. And it has never been verified. And we have how many? 32,000 of those cards where there are duplications. Is it not the same duplications in the national identification card that has caused this whole Ramadan issue and whatnot? And you are doing it again? So are you saying in the future another government or another group of people can go and challenge it and we have to do a whole registration again? That is the reason why you don't do a new registration. You take out what you say is wrong. That is why the court in Ramadan made it clear. Go and pick. Look at your system. If the thing is wrong, take it out. It didn't say go and compile a new register. So there are difficulties that are coming for the future based on the information and evidence that we have about these cards at the moment. And yet we are all asked to rely on it. As for the passport one, I won't even talk about it. It's negligible. 2 million passports, at least 500,000 of those people are not available. In any event, rightly put by some Pee Yalley, the government has already declared that they don't even support the passport. That was the whole fight with America. You cannot deport us because you cannot deport this people because they are not Ghanaian, because the passport is not valid. We have a pet chance in this country for making individual rights, losing individual rights based on institutional malpractice or wrong. Today, you won't accept birth certificate. Why? You won't accept driving license. Why? If you don't accept the driving license, even, okay, we can understand that. But birth certificate, why? And you say, oh, some people can go and get it. It's the institution that has created the problem, not the individual. And the individual must not pay for the institutional problems. And that will bring us back to the issue of land and the issue of this breaking into the building down in Nigeria. The way Lands Commission do their now individuals must suffer. Or now we have taken it from individual positions. Now we have even taken it to the diplomatic corps. And I'm going to make it clear that it has gotten worse under this Nana Akufo-Addo government. But we would cross when we get there. Let me not deviate from the issue of the court case. So we cannot do anything or understand the judgment till the 15th of July. And in that period, we cannot lose the time to register. So the president did the right thing. And I mean President Mahama, when he told the NDC and Ghanaians, go out there, register and vote. Because there is a concerted effort from day one to ensure that every advantage that can be given to the MPP as a government for them to retain power has been put down clearly by them for them to be able to affect. And the word is to rig the election in their favor from day one. One of the issues that came out recently was that NDC did not sign the peace accord. We said we will not sign because it doesn't have teeth. And why is it that a document that involves 22 issues, of which political parties only are responsible for 4, we should be signing? Everybody who is there should sign. From NCC to security agencies to CSOs meet, everybody should sign so that we all know that collectively we are responsible. Do you know that everybody signed except government? Up to now, we were the last to sign, but government hasn't signed it. As far as of the day of signing, government had not signed that document. And yet, the road plan has got immediate, future, and the terminology is medium. Yeah, the government is in all three. Oh. The government functions are in all three. They haven't signed. We saw their primaries. We saw the people that were around them. We saw how they themselves brutalized their own. It was on social media. We saw the guy who looked like he had just come out of a boxing match. Clearly dealt with. And we in the NDC, after Ayasu West were gone, are supposed to feel that they are going to treat us better. So I asked the question, if you see your neighbor with a big cane beating his dog, what do you think will happen when your dog crosses into his yard? That is the message that their primaries has sent to me. That, hey, if you can do this to your own, then I better be careful. Because the whole issue of this is difficult. There is too much, and as I said, we'll get to that, too much disorder, too much lack of dealing with issues under the current governance of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And it may create, the word is may, create a problem. I jump slowly or slightly into your opening. To even make matters worse, tribalism is rearing its ugly head in Ghana. Racism is rearing its ugly head in Ghana. Are we stupid in Volta region? It's the only place where you go and put security at this level. Couple of days before a registration exercise for the EC. In any event, you must have known the outcome of the judgment, didn't you, before you did it? So everything everybody was saying before, you knew. So you had even deployed before the judgment came out. We are fools in Ghana. We don't think. In the Volta region, we don't think. The only saving grace is that we were birthed from military rule. So we understand the military. So in certain areas, even, oh, where's all? Are you hungry? They are looking after some of them. Because we have no fight with the military. We have a problem with the government that is trying to raise this specter in our situation. It is wrong. It should not be done. And tribalism and racism are together in terms of the mindset. And we are seeing it. Volta region. Why? Do you know, you yourself know that when MPP came into power, they closed the birth and death registry in Volta region. Are you aware? So that nobody could go and get and remove the people. Why Volta region? Why are you didn't see fit to split regions. You didn't see fit to split regions, but you could split Volta. Is Ashanti not bigger than Volta? Isn't Eastern region also a big one? Why didn't you do the Krobo side separate from the Achim side? Why didn't you do it? But you were able to split Volta region. We are stupid? Is that what you are telling us? When you were creating districts, you were able to create districts in only which district was created in Volta region. And then you turn around and tell us that why is our constituency so big or our numbers so big in a particular place? When you have refused to split us, but you can split your own because you know there's a certain advantage to it. And you left us. I'm saying all this so that people know that we know what is going on in this country. It is wrong. It is dividing us. It is not bringing us together. It is dividing us. And if it wasn't because of the diligence of our chiefs and our leaders and the kind of statement that was brought out by President Mahama to try and reduce tensions Only for you both to start sending soldiers to the left, right, and center in the water region. A word to the wise, as they say, is enough. I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Segbefia. And before I go to Mr. Pratt, the last thing on Facebook is saying MPP is synonymous to the reckless mother who slept on and killed her baby, but for the wisdom of King Solomon would have killed the baby of the more careful mother. Thank you. Kingdom Kalechi Kwesi Pratt Jnr says, I suggest NDC should concentrate on energizing their base in the Volta region to come out and register than asking the government not to harass the people. It's a waste of time. I am clear in my mind that any move from the military to just brutalize, even once we're in Volta region, would trigger something Akufo-Addo can solve. Sape Agbo says, good morning, Sena. Extend my greetings to your venerable panelists. Hopefully, today's topic will touch on issues of concern for citizens. These days are not ordinary days. The few months left before the 2020 elections have placed citizens on tenterhooks, and if care is not taken, our country will be thrown into upheavals. Musa Bato says, Sena, I see inconsistency in this ruling because in the judgment of former CJ George Wood in respect of Abu Ramadan and Evans Nimako against EC, where she indicated that voters' ID is fundamental proof of identity of any Ghanaian, therefore it must be credible, hence NHIS must be deleted, of which EC complied. Now the same Supreme Court is saying that that card is useless. It's clearly a political judgment. God save our homeland, Ghana. Habib Bantu says President Akufo-Addo is a fascist leader, just like Adolf Hitler. But if Adolf Hitler should be alive, and he will be surprised to see the way man Akufo-Addo is ruling Ghana. He's a very tyrant and dictatorial leader. Are we in apartheid or the occupied territories in Ghana? No group of mafias can impose anybody as president on we the people. We shall resist. Our judges have thrown democracy to the dogs just to satisfy their master. Akufo-Addo promoted them. It's a shame. Let me end with Ruka Abubakar, who says the intimidation of those autocratic President Nana Addo can never stop President Mahama from winning the 2020 elections. You can spread military men on all streets of Ghana who will go and register and vote Nana out. Mr. Pratt.
Well, I mean, for me, the first most striking thing about the decision of the Supreme Court is that it is unclear. When the decision was announced, I tried to make sense of it and I couldn't. And I told myself that it may be because I'm illiterate as far as the law is concerned. So I started contacting friends of mine who were lawyers and who I thought would have a better understanding of the decision. That led to more confusion because every lawyer had his own interpretation of what the decision is. And I started asking myself, why would the Supreme Court write a decision which leads to more confusion? Because the whole purpose of getting the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution is to make it possible for all of us to understand what is in the Constitution and for all of us to live with the Constitution. Now we have a scenario where the Supreme Court makes a decision and the confusion is greater than before. And I was totally lost. Then the next day, I saw the views of Professor H. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, who has been commenting on national issues, particularly issues that have a bearing on the law and so on. And I was so impressed by the views expressed by Professor Pratt Jnr. Professor Pratt Jnr told the Supreme Court that they have to understand very clearly that when they make decisions, those decisions are not made for lawyers alone, and that those decisions are being made for the whole country, and that they have a responsibility to write out their decisions in such a manner that those decisions can be understood by everybody. And I was highly pleased, by the statements made by Professor Pratt Jnr. Now, I've been trying to find out what is the next course of action for the people of Ghana and so on. One of the things that strikes me is that this was a 7-member panel of the Supreme Court. It was not the whole bench of the Supreme Court which sat on this matter. And therefore, we can presume that if the aggrieved parties are not satisfied with the decisions of the Supreme Court, there's another process that they can apply, which is the process of review. And to that extent, the matter is not ended. It's open-ended because there's another possibility of seeking a review. The other thing which struck me was the fact that under the laws of Ghana, and indeed the laws of all civilized societies, when courts have made decisions, citizens have a right to criticize the decisions made by the courts, and citizens have a right to completely disagree publicly with the decisions of the court. So in this case, it is within the right of every Ghanaian to examine the decision of the court and to criticize the decision of the court and to support the decision of the court. So the matter is not ended as a subject which would attract public debate and public discussion. Now, I was also struck by the decision of the court to make the reasons for its decision available on the 15th of next month. And I said, what is the Supreme Court trying to do? The registration exercise starts on the 30th. And yet, we will not be in a position to know the reasons for its decision, which would allow us to properly interpret its decision until the exercise has gotten halfway. What is this? So what the Supreme Court is actually telling us, that whether we like it or not, no matter what its decision is and so on, the Electoral Commission should go ahead. What if the petitioners are minded to call for a review? How are they able to do it when the reasons for the decision are not available? And with all due respect, I am deeply worried by the conduct of the Supreme Court because it doesn't help us to resolve these controversial issues, before us. It doesn't help us in any way. I've heard some people say that it is normal for the Supreme Court to defer its reasons and so on. Yes, it is normal. It is normal to the extent that it has happened before. The Supreme Court has on several occasions deferred the giving of its reasons. But when we say that it is normal, it doesn't mean that that is how things ought to be done. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that that is how things ought to be done. Okay? In this particular case, when the registration exercise begins next Tuesday, one would have thought that the Supreme Court would do everything necessary to ensure that its reasons are out in good time so that its own decisions can be properly interpreted and so that we can have a smooth registration exercise if it was minded to approve the registration exercise by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court failed us in that regard. Now, there is something else which is interesting. The Supreme Court has decided on the face of its decision, on the bare face of the bare facts and so on. It does appear that the Supreme Court has decided that the registration exercise should continue. But the Supreme Court forgets, or we all forget, not just the Supreme Court, that indeed the process of registering to take part in an election is not compulsory. And that every individual Ghanaian would have to make decisions about his participation in the registration exercise. Now, I've had the privilege of speaking to several people who are Ghanaian, who are qualified to register and qualified to vote. Now, I spoke to a very old woman who has diabetes and who has hypertension. And this woman tells me that she's not going to register. And that registering may be a foolish act. Now, why is she saying so? She's saying that, look, I have all the underlying conditions. And if I catch COVID, I will die before December 7th. So if I go and register next week, and I die in 2 weeks' time, my registration is useless. It's absolutely useless. Because I would have registered, but I would not be able to participate in the elections. And there are many people who, in the face of rising COVID-19 cases, have vowed that they would not register. This woman I'm talking about is a sympathizer of the new Patriotic Party. So even the assumption that the new Patriotic Party can gain an advantage in view of the decision of the Supreme Court is not true. Because there are so many members of the new Patriotic Party who are frightened, are terrified by the rise in COVID-19 cases and may not turn up to register. Now, the other decision that the Supreme Court, announced, which worried me a great deal, was the portion of the decision which said that, look, what is important is whether or not the Electoral Commission has acted legally and constitutionally. And that, even though it is possible that there are better ways of doing what the EC wants to do, it doesn't matter. What is this? The Supreme Court says that there may be better ways, there may be more efficient ways of doing what the EC wants to do, but it doesn't matter. And that the only thing which matters is whether or not they have infringed the Constitution or they've infringed the law. But you see, throughout this week, one of the things that I'm hearing from lawyers and non-lawyers is what is called purposive interpretation of the law. And the Supreme Court should know that more than all of us. That in interpreting the law, it ought to be purposive. In fact, Ghana's Minister of Information, Honourable Alexander Segbefia, even made it better. He is now talking about modern purposive interpretation of the law. So, how purposive is the interpretation of the law when the Supreme Court comes up and says, well, there may be better ways of doing this, which will help everybody in the country, but what matters is the black and white text of the law. I mean, I'm surprised. The Supreme Court has powers more than any other court to do what is accepted in law as purposive interpretation of the law. Then the other thing that surprised me is that part of the Supreme Court decision says that we have given our decision. No other court, if it has to make a ruling in future cases which have not been put before the courts yet, should do anything which contradicts what we have done. Master, it is true that when we look at the hierarchy of the law, Supreme Court decisions are binding on lower courts. That's a fact. That's a fact. Okay? No. That's a fact. No, that's a fact. That you look at the hierarchy of laws and Supreme Court decisions as laws are more weightier than Court of Appeal decisions and more weightier than High Court decisions and so on. Indeed, the lower courts are supposed to be guided by decisions of the court. Okay? So that is a given. Why state it now in the manner in which the Supreme Court stated it, when it's already a given? The Supreme Court stated it for a purpose. What is that purpose? And you see, we don't know what cases are likely to come up. And the Supreme Court stated it because it could only have stated it because it anticipated that such cases would come up or may have come up already. And that because it so anxiously wants this registration exercise to proceed, it is warning the courts below that don't touch it. Allow the registration exercise to proceed. And if that is the case, then I'm worried. You understand? Then I am very deeply worried. Now, for everything, there are consequences. If the Supreme Court had decided that we can use the old voter ID card, there will be consequences. The Supreme Court's decision, as we presume it to be now, also has consequences. And we should be prepared to live with those consequences. Now I'm saying that it is just possible. And here I am moving into the realm of possibilities. It is just possible that at the end of this registration exercise, one region, say Ashanti, may have succeeded in registering 98% of potential voters. You understand? And that a region like the Volta region may only have succeeded in registering 50, 60, 70% of potential voters. Now, if this happens, people are going to ask why. People are going to have to find reasons why this has happened. Do you know the consequences of this? Do you know the consequences of this for national cohesion, for the credibility of the elections and so on? I wonder. So we should have thought through all this and made purposeful interpretation of the law, as they, the lawyers, have been telling us all the time. Should it happen that Ashanti scores 70 and Volta region scores 68, who is going to tell us how to interpret that? Everybody, every region, every people, every individual will interpret it in their own ways. And how they interpret the outcome of this registration exercise could have consequences for national stability and national cohesion. And I do hope that all of these factors would have been taken into consideration in the decisions which were made by the Supreme Court. Now, you see, the Supreme Court decision has not been made in a vacuum. It has been made in a live political situation. A political situation which is alive. So, the political circumstances of Ghana today, with all its socio-economic implications and so on, are important in evaluating the Supreme Court decision. Yesterday, I read through the newspapers yesterday, and my brothers, I was shocked and angry. You know why? We are going to do this registration exercise in the midst of controversy. And it's in the midst of this controversy that the new Patriotic Party decided to announce that the head of NAGMO is the leader of its Ashanti region team for mobilizing MPP supporters to go and register. I mean, this is incredible. Absolutely incredible. A state institution with responsibility for mobilization in cases of disaster, for mobilizing relief for distressed communities and so on, its leader, public servant, is the one who today is going to lead the MPP registration exercise in Ashanti. What is happening to us? Let us assume that it is allowed and is able to do that, and there are no problems and so on.
Thursdays are for the hard talk, those economic...
I don't think he was laughing. Yes, yes.
The brother said that he had deployed men with AK-47 to go and fight COVID. That's why Kwesi was laughing.
Well, a couple more messages. Abu Grab Isaka says, I will advise the NDC party to channel.
Come back. COVID. As a country, we are in serious problems because although we peaked, according to government, at a certain point, we might have a situation where we are in a country where we have different peaks. So we continue to be peaking, as I put it. On a more serious note, the government is sending mixed messages, and government agencies are doing the same. When I say government now, I take the whole shebang. The president comes on TV and says, look, Ghanaians are not taking this matter seriously. It's in our hands. Social distancing, making sure that you wash your hands, wear your mask, puts draconian penalties on an act to make it illegal. Yet in the same breath, the government and its party machinery have no problem with 80 million people queuing to register for an ID card or a voter's ID card, even though there's one in existence already. Now, if you send out this type of message, that look, when it comes to politics and it comes to voting, forget COVID. Let us forget that the illness is there. But when it comes to you driving alone in your car with a face mask or without a face mask, you should be arrested. It's that important that even driving alone with your face mask is a problem. So the government now has to come back and say, no, we didn't mean it like that. We are giving out instructions. But the point is that you have put a draconian penalty. There should have been separate penalties for, we were the ones who even intimated to government as the technical team that masks should be made compulsory. It took them 5 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks for them to agree to wear mask and now make it compulsory. Now itself ran away from. Yet we have not done anything to actually reverse the position. So overnight, it was even so sad. You see, there's a big difference between recovered and discharged. So how do you put them all in the same bracket? Recovered, discharged, one figure. What does it mean? In actual fact, you've put people who are actually carriers in the same group as people who have not got it anymore. You can't do that. Why? To make your recovery rate look good, to give people the impression. So now politics is involved in our figuring. Of these people, how many of them are actually recovered? In other words, when they tested them, they came out negative. That's what we want to know. Not those who have, after a certain period of time, haven't shown any symptoms, so have been asked to go home. But if you test the person, what has voter done to anybody? Why? You are sending a group of people into an area. Even you are taking precautions for your so-called...
If they are on the ground triple. But now that is where we are. Nobody that we are in where we are at where we are today. But that is the situation we are confronted with. And Ghana is not I think they were there to do two-way traffic. You are not on your
thieves. Hospital, and it exposes the weaknesses in the general administration of lands in this country. And perhaps it's a wake-up call for us to begin to review the land administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me, Angelo Kojofi says, why are the where's the target? It says, our land today is a war zone, but one thing they refuse to understand is that we don't fear guns nor arrows. And then let me end with one from David Sena, who says that why is government mounting aggressive aggression against the people of the Volta region? President Akufo-Addo's grandmother called Mantibia hailed from Tongo, near Peking, the Volta region. Check the video of the chief of Tongo saying this categorically when President JM visited his town recently to commiserate with them on the death of the NDC constituency chairman. By the way, tell Mujeeb that the reliefs the NDC sought in the Supreme Court were for Ghanaians, not NDC Ghanaians. Well, that's how we end the show for today. Before that, I'd like to say a happy birthday in advance to the man who drives me here every day, one of our drivers from Radio Gold, Eric Pobi. He celebrates his birthday tomorrow. So a happy birthday in advance to him. And then congratulations to Albert Aheto. And say a big thank you to Abraham Kofi and his wife Mabel of Mabel Restaurant. A big thank you to both of you. And condolence, one woman we know as Grandma Abena, who has been of great help to those of us who still do some work at Radio Gold. A big condolences to her on the loss of her father, who is being buried today. Once again, our condolences to the family of the assembly member who died, whose death made the news in Sogakope. And that's how we end the show. But before we go, there's a message that came to me whilst we were on the show. And this is from somebody who said is closely connected to the management of cases in Ketu South. He says, the MCE's message is a cover up on the presence of the military in Ketu South. I am a member of the Public Health Emergency Committee in Ketu South. Currently, we have only 3 active cases, so no need for such military presence. So that's the information that he is giving me. And we are still trying to understand. I guess that's why Mr. Pratt was laughing at some point in time. But the key thing to always remember...
But the 3 cases, you can fight them with AK-47. if you have 2,000 soldiers with AK-47,
killing 3.
The 3 cases of COVID-19, you can kill them easily.
Well, thank you very much for staying tuned. That's a very interesting note to end. But just don't forget, like Mr. Pratt indicated, the protocols are not foolproof, but at least they protect you to a certain extent. So please don't forget to observe them as you go along. It's not about who will punish you or who will not punish you. It's about your life. That is what is important. Never forget that. A big thank you to the wonderful crew here at Pan-African TV and at Ahunto 92.3 FM, Radio Gold, and also to our several affiliates across the country. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week. We are back same time next week. I had Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr. In the studio. Honourable Alexander Segbefia is a former Minister of Health. Mujeeb Rahman is a member of the MPP's communication team. Ambassador Pee Yalley is a former Ghana High Commissioner to India and also president of the NDC Professionals Forum. Always wonderful hearing from them, especially Mr. Pat. My name is Sena Nombo. Enjoy your day.
truly African.